So I just want to give you guys a bit of a rundown on that. It's very exciting as well. Been a lot going on, but sorry I couldn't live stream today from the Grand Canyon. I did try, however there was no phone signal up there, so we couldn't get the live streaming to happen. But I'll give you a rundown of it verbally, and you guys can get some photo or whatnot. So the first 2 weeks, as I said, they've been a bit of a roller coaster ride. You know, the flight to Fiji from Australia was actually pretty good. It was a nice, easy. It also presented its challenges, particularly trying to talk to the French controllers in New Caledonia. I had a lot of trouble understanding them over the radio because their accents made it a bit difficult, even though they were speaking English, well, to me anyway. Many please say agains and what was that over the radio, but onwards from there we made it to Nandi with a bit of trouble again with the HF radio communications. Nandi had some towers knocked out in the cyclone that went through a little while ago, so some of their radio networks aren't too great, but we managed to get through, and that's what's important. Fiji was quite comfortable actually. I really enjoyed my time there. Some wonderful people that I met, and I got to do a talk with some of the aviation students there, which I really enjoyed. Talking to them, I either was very good at talking or a bit boring because at the end there was only one question, but look, that was okay. I was just happy to be able to be there and share my message at all, so that was really great. The next flight took me from Fiji to American Samoa, and in American Samoa I had another excellent time as well. The flight over there was only about 5.5 hours, so it wasn't too long, but it was also a beautiful flight. On this side of the island of Fiji there was a lot better radio signal and weren't as many towers down because of that cyclone, so had pretty good communications all the way across and light variable winds, so it was comfortable, it was smooth, no major headwinds, and it was actually a really nice flight. Landing in American Samoa was a bit interesting because as you come in from the west side of the island to land at the airfield, you actually can't see it, so it was a bit difficult because as I came in, the airfield situated sort of on the other side of a cliff, and air traffic controller asking, do you have the field visual? And I was saying, well, no, I don't yet. They said, it should just be in front of you. And I said, I know, I just can't see it. And eventually I popped over the ridge, and I was, I think it was 08, or I can't remember, one of the runways there. It was a big, long runway. Now, when I say this was a big runway, I mean, I could have landed the Cirrus, taken off, and landed the Cirrus again, and then taken off again. It was massive. Could have just about taken off sideways as well. It was very wide. It is designed to take some of the biggest aircraft in. But no, American Samoa was the director for the Visitors Bureau, essentially like the minister for visitors, I guess. But we had a great time. He showed me around. It was a very lovely country, and the people are quite friendly. And, sort of a mix between a Pacific Island country and the United States, so it was pretty cool culturally as well. There was also we went up and visited where the cable car was, or used to be, and it ran from one side of the bay right across the water there over the harbour and into on top of the mountain. And they actually built it originally to just a radio tower that was up there. And anyway, this what do they call it, gondola thing stopped working, but don't quote me on that, because the way the air traffic controller on one of their celebration days and went spiralling and crashed into the harbour, and unfortunately American Samoa, where the airport is, it was standing by the water, but the wire remained up mountains, so you can't get onto them. So I ended up it down, and it was actually mentioned the wire that abruptly crosses the harbour in all of the aircraft charts. So I thought that was, they might be trying to rebuild it again, which would be very exciting. American Samoa is a great place. Not really known as a tourist destination, but I think it could be today. Out of American Samoa, it took me to Kiribati. This was, I'd say, with the radio. It was I wasn't very, taking off out of, so it was still pretty dark, which is okay. The aircraft was very heavy because I needed to take extra fuel into Kiribati. Because to get a lot of storms in Christmas Island, Kiribati is over the equator. It's about 6 degrees to 10 degrees south. No point me buying two, and it's sort of the last zone that $100 worth of fuel that I can't use. So, which I was a bit heavy taking off Hawaii to California leg, but I was underneath that. But it was still pretty heavy. And upon climbing up, I couldn't get anyone on the radios because the way the works there is you're talking to Samoa, where the airport is, it's blocked by mountains. The radio signal is blocked by mountains, so you can't get onto them. So I ended up calling them on the telephone to get my clearance before I took off. And once I got my clearance, I took off and climbed to 9,000 feet very slowly, I might add, because I was heavy. And then I still couldn't get onto them. I thought, this is a bit interesting, and it just turns out it wasn't a very good reception there and radio, the long distance radio, and fumbled my way through the communications until I eventually got Trans Cisco. But a bit before this happened, right when I was struggling with those, and there were a lot of things started going wrong for me. It was actually a bit interesting. On top of that, the comfortable, and I was wondering whether I was going to have to turn back and fly back to American Samoa. Battling too many things. I was just starting to enter into, and the ITCZ it started to burn a bit of fuel off the airplane's in, because it's just before the autopilot was almost ready to take over. I'd managed to through the equator, and it was still sort of dark now. I was struggling with the radios, and fly when the airplane's so heavy, it'll tend to hunt the altitude and sort of pitch up and down and almost give you a dolphin effect, which is it's bad for the autopilot because it keeps the airplane trying to turn around and back. Now, if I have to give you a visual description of how they're going to turn back to American Samoa or turn around, and you've sort of got to ended up going with my gut with one hand and hold the pipe up with the other hand. Otherwise, I was about to enter, you'll start spilling fuel over the aeroplane. It's not a good thing. Towering part of the cloud is generally, so you need two hands to burp the tank, hot air rising to take the cloud up, and then in between to do this sort of, as well as trying to fly the aeroplane. Now the problem is, you need to be able to, so it's sort of this sort of situation going on. So I put that on the gap, and started to actually feel a bit sick. Part of the radios weren't working, of course, and now I'm in this storm zone. So not dangerous, but it just got photos. Anyway, I thought I'd made it through it. It was getting lighter and easier to control, and the auto to burp the tank and get some fuel transferring across. And I thought it's going to be a nice, easy flight, and avoid of the intertropical convergence zone. So we're sort of getting up to around the 5 degrees south of the equator. And I turned around the corner of this one storm, and I think, I'm going to the other side. It was like someone flicked a switch, and I get grief I've ever seen in my entire life. They're massive, covering 50 nautical miles in each direction. With 2 storm cells is a little gap, and I thought, gap. And so I ended up going with my gut fit. But the problem was, before I landed, and I said, it's customs and it's into some clouds. So the way storms work is you've got, I'll be there, and I gave them whatever to the storm. You'll see where there's a lot of convection or hot air rising. The aeroplane and taxied in and pulled up. Where there's just low line artificial on the display on the screen, and it's the heading that you're going to aim for. So I put that on I just lined it up visually, and I said, right, that's where I need to go. And so I was hand flying and just trying to keep this heading boat things up. Eventually customs turned up perfectly. It was absolutely amazing. But I popped out of the cloud again, and I'm right in between these two, smack bang in the middle. Storm cell up one side, this storm cell up the other side, and then right ahead of me can fit through. And so I by absolutely stunning blue skies. It was came through, and as soon as I got out the other side, it was like someone flicked a switch, and the flying got so much easier. And I put the autopilot on, and I just got in these drums on the back of this truck, and fuel and radio communications. It turned out to be quite a nice flight after that, and I'll talk about running an island time. So landing in Kiribati, I radioed them up before I landed, and I said, it's customs, and then we sort of fuel ready, and they said, yeah, it's ready, be there. And so I shut down, found someone, I said, hi, are you customs? And he said, he called customs, he said, oh, they're 40 minutes. I said, 40 minutes? I was supposed to be here when... So I waited. Another interesting experience. And that was pretty funny, because he rocked up big, the gap under the door. A crab could have fit under it with whatever else he was wearing, and no shoes in other countries with customs. But I didn't mind. He'd go and get some food, and I was a bit worried. Then I said, do you know when fuel's coming? Foods were good and what foods weren't, so I thought I'd get something imported. Called them, and he said, oh, I'm not sure if it's a long way away. It's on the other side of the. 3 hours later, fuel turns up, and at this stage I'm really tired. And if they've taken some out or tried to mend the drum, so I made sure the seal was on the drum. I watched them pull it off and break the seal, and then I tested it for water with. Then we sort of I flushed the pump out with avgas as well to make sure there was no other, because they use the pump. There's the one pump on the island, so it can be used for anything, including water and diesel and everything, things I don't want in my fuel tanks. So we flushed the pump, and then the refueler pumped it while I nozzled the aeroplane and filled it up, and we got the fuel in, and I was just ready for bed. So I found someone to take me back to the hotel, and when I walked in, I realised that it was the only hotel on the island, and it was another interesting experience. Crowd could have fit under it, which is what I was worried about, because we'd seen about 150 since the airport, along the roads there, and I thought, oh, okay, go and get some food, and foods were good and what. I'm not sure if you guys are getting this or not. I just got a message saying you're not. I'll pause the streaming here, and I'll get back to you if it's not working.